Hi there, welcome to Nepi Invest. So today I'm going to look at a company called Straker Translations. The ticker code on the ASX is STG. So for those St. George fans, very similar ticker code to St. George. But yeah, so the reason I'm doing this company is they had a very good week on the stock market last week. So on about 11th of November, they did release an announcement in regards to a deal with IBM, and the share price reacted quite positively to that deal, increasing 75% in one day. So I'm sort of interested in these deals with these large corporations because there is instances in the past where a small Australian company does a deal with one of these huge conglomerations, international conglomerations, and sometimes the deal is not very positive for the small Australian company. In fact, the large international conglomeration gets most, if not everything, out of the deal. And that happened with OBJ. They're not called OBJ anymore. They did a deal with Procter and Gamble about 6 or 7 years ago. Market was a little bit positive with it, but they got really nothing out of that deal with Procter and Gamble. And they're not called OBJ. They changed the name to something like Wellness or something. But anyway, so I just wanted to see what this sort of deal was, whether it's some sort of material, there's some sort of material nature in the deal, or if it's just all fluff. So let's get into what Straker Translations do. Fairly obvious just by the name Straker Translations. That's sort of a big hint what they do. So they are a translation services company. So I sort of like the company where you can describe what they do in a very short, succinct line or a few words, and Straker Translations fall under that. So very simple what they do, translation services company, nothing too complex about what they do. So they provide translation services to corporations, personal people, so those who need immigration or legal documents, and they provide translations in more than 80 languages. They also have automation, automated translation sort of thing. So they do hybrid human and automated translation. So they do have use of something like 1,000 human translations. So they combine the two, and this is one of the AI-powered automated translation. It's called Ray Translation. Customers can use this for free. So once they become a customer, they can have these use this. And so this just is something the customer can use to fit all their translation needs. Something very good. Anyway, so that's what Straker Translations do. Very simple. They provide translation services. Now, so the next thing I want to do after I've found out what they do is just to look at some of their financials. So this is from their yearly report, which was issued in May. So they're a little bit of a different, they are a New Zealand company, so they have a little bit of a different reporting season than us. So they report the yearly results in May. The half-yearly results will come in November. Oh, we're in November now. So in the next few weeks, we should see their half-year reports. And they still release Appendix 4C along with all the other companies every quarter. And the last one was released a few weeks ago. So looking at their financials for the last financial year, they're $28 million in revenue. Media revenue growth, 55%. They seem to be focusing on that. I had a very quick look at what that is. So it looks like they do some sort of subtitle work for movies and films, and that seems to be growing quite quickly. Margins at 55.2%, repeat revenue 86, cash at bank 11.2, but they are not cash flow positive, and they are not EBITDA positive either. So they're not profitable at this stage, but they're very close to getting to that point. So because they're not really profitable, they do an Appendix 4C, which shows you the operating cash flow. So all these numbers are reporting in New Zealand dollars. So the last quarter, which was released a few weeks ago now, they did have 7.8 million New Zealand dollars in receipts from customers. And on the bottom line, that shows just a cash flow in operating loss of only $44,000. So they're getting very close to being cash flow positive in operations. And that's the one thing I really look for. So two things I really look for is increasing trend in receipts and cash flow positive in operations. So if I get those two things, I will become much more interested in the company. And Straker Translations is heading towards that way. And in fact, this IBM announcement, I think, will push them over the edge, and it might be the inflection point the company is looking for, and the shareholders are definitely looking for that too. So this is their receipts history going back to when they IPO'd. So they IPO'd in late 2018. So the first quarterly cash flow report was released in January 2019. So the increase in cash receipts is very slow, but that's not bad. I don't mind slow increases in cash receipts. It's not too lumpy. We see just a gradual increase. And the last quarter, we did see 7.8, which was their peak. Cash flow, so we have seen they've been traditionally cash flow negative in operations, but getting very close to being cash flow positive. The only cash flow positive quarter they had was actually the first one, and ever since then they've been very slightly cash flow negative. It's sort of interesting to me. They've been very close, and I'm just wondering why management just hasn't sort of maybe not manipulated the data, but just made it so that they are cash flow positive. Would have been interesting to see what the share price would have reacted, or the market would have reacted, if they were cash flow positive every single quarter. But it's not management's, it's not up to them to manipulate the data to become cash flow positive. They want to run the business as well as they can. So growth for growth purposes, and to create the maximum value for the shareholders. Okay, so 75% up in one day. So these are the 3 days. The day of the announcement was the 11th of November, Remembrance Day, and the share price increased 76%. In fact, 1.2 million shares issued, and I've just got the chart here of that day. So this is 15-minute candlesticks, and the good thing here is on the day of release of this announcement. So we didn't see the peak in share price until the afternoon. So a lot of times when you see a significant announcement, a lot of times the peak in share price happens in the first 1 or 2 hours, and then we see a gradual selling throughout the day, and that's actually quite bearish. In this case, with the peak in the price in the sort of, we'll say the midday or late early afternoon, I think what happened on this was the announcement. The market was digesting the announcement, and throughout the morning they liked what they see, and a lot of people decided to buy in. And since the peak, we've just seen a slight sell down, but on very low volume, which is quite bullish. So this is their announcement. So this is what got the market excitement. So it's to do with providing, of course, translation services to IBM Cloud Services, IBM Adaptive Translation Services, and IBM Global Media Localization. So at the moment, they do have a relationship with IBM, but that's only for one language, Spanish. So this agreement extends their deal with IBM, or the agreement with IBM, from one language to 55 languages, including a number of key popular languages. So that could be many different languages. It could be French, Mandarin, who knows. But that's a significant increase from 1 to 55, and they're also providing that. And they're using the Ray platform to provide those needs to IBM, and they're also providing those 55 languages to IBM Adaptive Translation Services. And probably the thing that really got my attention was this last comment right on the bottom. So Straker Translations has a March 31st year end, and the company expects revenue from the agreement to impact Q4 financial year financial results. So as I mentioned, they do have a little bit of a different financial year than us, and they're just mentioning that this deal is going to be a material contributor to company revenue. And I think that's sort of given the fact they're going from one language to 55 languages. And just as historically, the contribution from IBM related translation service is a material contributor. That's with one language. Now it's going to 55 languages. So the fact that they're already a material contributor suggests to me this is a significant announcement, and that's probably why the market looked at it, and when they digested it, we saw a significant rise in share price, 76% up in one day. So a really exciting announcement for shareholders and for the company. And that's really all I've got to say about the announcement, because it actually is an exciting announcement. So last thing I want to do is just look at the charts for Straker Translations. So I'm half financial, half technical. Look at both of them, combine them, and come up with a good decision whether to buy a company or not. So they've been IPO'd on the ASX in late 2018 at around, it looks like $1.70 or so, and got to a peak of about $2.10 in middle of 2019, and a low at the peak of the COVID panic in late March of around 50 cents. And it's been going up slightly since then, sort of in a trading range the last 6 or 7 months until we had this announcement. And that's where we've seen a big spike in share price on a big spike in volume. And if you've been following my videos, I always like spike in share price corresponding to spikes in volume. So market cap of 77 million, so it's not overly expensive. And I think if they can really lock in becoming cash flow positive on a consistent basis moving forward with this deal with IBM, I no doubt that market cap and share price will increase quite substantially from here. So that's all I've got on Straker Translations. If you are a shareholder and want to maybe give me some more in-depth analysis of the company, because this is a company I've just started to learn about in the last few days, and I'm probably not across it 100%. And even the fact that they're doing business with IBM Cloud Services, I'm not across how IBM Cloud Services is doing. If it is a highly positively growing segment of IBM, I believe it is. I believe they grew 30% in the last year, IBM Cloud Services. And IBM also has changed CEOs in April, so they went from a CEO I didn't really like. In fact, IBM had 22 or 23 consecutive quarters of negative growth, and that CEO is now gone, and a new CEO has come in, and potentially a better CEO too. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. So if you leave some comments in regards to Straker if you are a shareholder, and maybe add some further light to the company. Otherwise, I'm not a professional advisor, so if you do need professional advice in your dealings, financial dealings, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified. So that's all for today. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm just doing these videos for educational, entertainment, and research purposes. And in this case, it was more research for myself. And I hope I've helped you understand this business a little bit more. Nothing too complex with this business, and exciting times for the company and shareholders of the company. So that's all for today. Have a good day. Bye.